The broadcast of the regular meeting of the Business Inspections, Housing and Zoning Committee will now begin.
Good afternoon. Welcome to the regular meeting of the Business Inspections, Housing and Zoning Committee for today, which is February 16th, 2021. I'm Lisa Goodman and I am chair of the committee. As we begin, I'll note for the record, this meeting has remote participation by members of the City Council and city staff as authorized under Minnesota statute, section 13D.021 as a result of the declared local public health emergency. At this time, I'll ask the clerk to call the roll so we can verify that there is a quorum today.
Councilmember Reich.
Here.
Gordon.
Here.
Osmond.
Here.
Ellison. Schrader.
Here.
Chair Goodman.
Present.
There are 5 members present.
Let the record reflect we have a quorum. In recognition of February as Black History Month, Fire Chief Tyner has challenged City Council members to open each public meeting with a historical fact tied to Black History Month. In that spirit, on this day in Black history in 1856, Frederick Douglass was elected as president of the Freedmen's Savings and Trust Company, a secure banking institution that had been chartered by the U.S. government to encourage economic development among newly emancipated communities in the post-Civil War period. Initially headquartered in New York, the bank later relocated to Washington, D.C. At its peak, it operated 37 branch offices in 17 different states and held deposits that peaked at $57 million from more than 70,000 depositors. With that, I'm going to move to the consent agenda, which is items 5 through 13. Item number 5 is a land sale for the West Broadway Curve Affordable Housing Project. This would be setting a public hearing. Item 6 is also setting a public hearing for a land sale at 2837 Chicago Avenue to Allina Health Systems. Item 7 is passing a resolution granting approval from Hennepin County's Housing and Redevelopment Authority to undertake a project in Minneapolis at the Loring Towers, which is 15 East Grant Street. Item number 8 are emergency solution grant supplemental funding. I'll just read the names of the organizations. Aliveness is receiving a grant for rapid rehousing, as is Housing Link, Vale Place, Youth Link, and we're also authorizing a joint powers agreement with the county to administer the ESG rapid rehousing funds. Item number 9 is an extension of the Minneapolis small and medium-sized family multifamily loan program. This is a 5-year extension. Item number 10 is a rezoning at 655 19th Avenue Northeast. Item number 11 is referring the subject matter of the administrative and hearing procedures changes. Item number 12 is referring to staff an issue regarding the animal care and control. Item 13 is setting a public hearing on March 2nd for us to consider the appointment of Andrea Brennan as the Executive Director of the Community Planning and Economic Development Agency, as well as the MCDA. Are there any discussion items or anything anyone would like to pull from items 1 through 13? Seeing none, I'll move approval of items 5 through 13 and ask the clerk to please call the roll.
Councilmember Reich.
Aye.
Gordon.
Aye.
Osmond.
Aye.
Schrader.
Aye.
Chair Goodman.
Aye.
There are 5 ayes.
Those items are approved. With that, we'll move to the public hearing agenda, starting with item number 1, which is passage of an ordinance with regard to elevators and conveyance device ordinances. And I'll call on Mr. Poor, I believe, to give that report.
Good afternoon, Chair Goodman, council members. The ordinance before you is in regards to the elevator program. So this is an action that repeals the ordinance requiring the city to perform elevator inspections. This action is the final step in transitioning this work from the city to the state of Minnesota. The city adopted the 2021 budget, and this does not include this activity. The state of Minnesota began exercising full permitting and inspections authority over the existing and newly installed elevators within the city of Minneapolis effective January 1st, 2021. And I'm open for any questions if there are any.
Are there any questions for Mr. Poor on item number 1? Seeing none, I'll open the public hearing on item number 1. I see that 2 people have signed in to speak to this item, Mr. McConnell and Ms. Webb. I'll call on Mr. McConnell first. Please press *6 to unmute, sir.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Can you hear me now?
We can hear you, but not great. Could you speak up a little bit, Mr. McConnell?
Yes, ma'am, I will. I sent a letter into the members of the committee as well. I don't want to belabor the point, but it just seems to me that we went down this path with electrical inspections several years ago. We had to put language back into the charter, or excuse me, into the city ordinance to allow for the city to take this authority in case of a state shutdown. I think that's a lesson well learned. I think the city should consider doing the same for elevators. And I also laid out the fact that there are some unresolved issues around this that my request is that we just hold on to this for a couple weeks and see if we can't get everything resolved and maybe do things in a little bit better, more logical fashion. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony, Mr. McConnell. I'll call on Ms. Webb next. Please press *6 to unmute. Is Jennifer Webb on the call? We'll give one more minute to see if Ms. Webb is able to press *6 to unmute. Maybe also unmute your phone. Okay, seeing that we do not have Ms. Webb on the call, I'll see if there's anyone else who would like to speak to this issue. Seeing none, I'm going to close the public hearing. Are there comments, questions, or a motion on this item? If not, I'll move to approve the staff recommendation. I'll also, though, I hear from staff that Ms. Webb is on the line. I'll give her one more shot to try to check in. Press *6 to unmute, please. Okay, given that the public hearing is closed and we can't seem to get Ms. Webb on the line, I would invite her to send written comments as well and ask the clerk to call the roll.
Councilmember Reich,
Aye.
Gordon,
No.
Osmond,
Aye.
Schrader,
Aye.
Chair Goodman.
Aye.
There are 4 ayes and 1 nay.
That carries and the motion is approved. We'll move to item number 2, which is Prieto Taqueria Bar, and I will call on Mr. Velasquez to give that report, please.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Madam Chair and committee members. I'm Enrique Velasquez, Manager of Licenses and Consumer Services, presenting an application to you today from Taqueria Bar 2 LLC, doing business as Prieto Taqueria Bar, located at 4751 Nicollet Avenue in Ward 11. This applicant requests an on-sale liquor with Sunday sales and no live entertainment license. The business has indoor seating for 86 with no outdoor seating. The proposed hours of operation are 11 a.m. to 10 p.m. 7 days a week. On January 25th, public hearing notices were sent to residents and property owners within 600 feet of the property, to the Tangletown Neighborhood Association, and to Councilmember Schrader. We've received 8 responses to the public hearing so far. 3 respondents are in complete support of the business, opening with an on-sale liquor license. One of the statements of support comes from Tangletown Neighborhood Association. 3 respondents support the business opening and also express general concern about livability, traffic, congestion, and parking. And then there were 2 additional responses that were didn't provide any indication on whether they support or do not support the business, but just had general concerns about some of those items of parking, congestion, dumpsters, and how those things are being handled, since this business is moving into a property that already has 4 other businesses, and some of them are restaurants. So what would adding a 5th do to an already tenuous situation with respect to trash and refuse collection? The concerns, mentioned those already. So we have been in contact with this applicant to talk through some of these different concerns. He's already expressed that he will increase the number of times that trash and recycling will be picked up over the course of the week, from 2 to 3 times per week. We'll make an effort to clean out the enclosure area once the snow melts so that he can get in there. And we do have that letter of support from the Tingletown Neighborhood Association. So we do feel fairly confident that a lot of these different issues will be resolved. And this licensee also, or this applicant rather, operated another restaurant in Ward 10 that unfortunately recently closed or closed within the past year. We had no reports of any issues with how that business or how that restaurant operated in the time that it was open. So at this point, Licensing and Consumer Service Division, we recommend approval of the on-sale liquor with Sunday sales and no entertainment license. This concludes my presentation. I'll stand for any questions.
Thank you for your report, Mr. Velasquez. I'll see if there's any questions on item number 2.
Thank you.
Seeing none, we'll open the public hearing and invite Mr. Castiglione to speak. Please press star unmute. Star 6 to unmute. Is the applicant on the call? I'll call one more time for anyone who wants to speak to item number 2, noting that Mr. Castiglione is online, hoping he can press star 6 to unmute.
Hello.
Hello, sir. Please feel free to say a few words.
Hi. About the garbage and all situation is like the traffic and that kind of stuff. I called the company already for being 3 times a week for the garbage, and right now is a winter time, but my plan is like use a pressure washer to clean like once a week in the garbage area. I know it's a lot of complaints with the neighbors over here with the other restaurants, and I take a charge for that one when it's open in the restaurant. So.
Well, thank you for your testimony and good luck to you in getting this new business open. Thank you for being on the call today. Is there anyone else who is signed up to speak to this issue? Seeing none, I'm going to close the public hearing and call on Councilmember Schrader.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm happy to move this forward. Also want to thank, congratulate Mr. Castiglione for moving his business into Ward 11, and also just the thoughtfulness with neighbors. He is inheriting an area that has not had great tenants in there, and so the garbage has been a big issue. So I really appreciate the adding another time and really listening to the neighborhood. I know a lot of the other concerns were about parking. I just want to be clear that that's not a part of what we need for a business license. That's a different part. But I do urge the property owner, who is different than the business owner going in, to really be mindful of that and to be thoughtful going forward. Thank you.
Thank you so much. On Councilmember Schrader's motion to approve, I'll ask the clerk to call the roll.
Councilmember Reich.
Aye.
Gordon.
Aye.
Osmond.
Aye.
Schrader.
Aye.
Chair Goodman.
Aye.
There are 5 ayes.
That carries and the motion is approved. We'll now move on to public hearing number 3, which is the Cedar Inn in Ward 12. I'll ask Mr. Velasquez to give us a report.
Thank you, Madam Chair and committee members. Enrique Velasquez, Manager of Licenses and Consumer Services, once again presenting an entertainment upgrade application from Harry's Cedar Inn, Inc., doing business as Cedar Inn, located at 4155 Cedar Avenue South in Ward 12. Cedar Inn currently holds an on-sale wine with strong beer and no entertainment license, and they request an upgrade to limited entertainment. If approved, they intend to add karaoke, small bands, and live music indoors only. No entertainment or music will be allowed outdoors on their sidewalk cafe. Hours of operation are Monday through Friday from 11 a.m. to 2 a.m., Saturday and Sunday 10 a.m. to 2 a.m. for indoors. Exterior is Monday through Friday, 11 a.m. to 10 p.m., and Saturday and Sunday from 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. On January 25th, 184 public hearing notices were sent to property owners within 600 feet of the premises, to the Standish Erickson Neighborhood Organization, west of the Rail Business Association, and to Councilmember Johnson. We received one response from the community in support of the upgrade in entertainment. A review of 311 cases and police calls for service found no significant issues attributable to this business. Licenses and Consumer Services recommends approval of on-sale wine with strong beer and limited entertainment license. This concludes my presentation, and I'll stand for any questions.
Are there any questions for Mr. Velasquez on item number 3? Seeing none, we'll open the public hearing on item number 3, and I see that Mr. Landvig is on the line. If he'd like to press *6 to unmute, we'd be happy to hear from you now. This would be a call for Harry Landvig on item number 3.
Yep, this is Jim Landvik, the owner of Cedar Inn. I just recently purchased the business last year, just before COVID. And I guess I would like to increase the business a little bit by adding some entertainment.
Great. Well, thank you so much for purchasing this business, and we'd like to see you increase business as well. Thank you for being on the call today. We'll see if there's anyone else signed up to speak. It looks like there's not. So I will close the public hearing and call on Councilmember Schrader.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I'd like to move this forward for approval.
Item number 3 has been moved forward for approval. Are there further comments or questions? Seeing none, I'll ask the clerk to please call the roll.
Councilmember Reich,
Aye.
Gordon,
Aye.
Osman,
Aye.
Schrader,
Aye.
Chair Goodman.
Aye.
There are 5 ayes.
That item is approved. Now we'll move on to our quasi-judicial portion of our public hearing. There's one item on that agenda. This is item number 4, a certificate of appropriateness, and we will ask staff, Rob Shalaki, to give us a presentation, please.
Good afternoon, council members. My name is Rob Skalecki. I'm a city planner in the Historic Preservation section of CPED. Today I'm presenting an appeal application submitted by Ben Sandvig, who's the applicant and the appellant of the January 19th, 2021 Heritage Preservation Commission's denial of the certificate of appropriateness application to replace garage doors at the property located at 408 First Street North in the Warehouse Historic District. Next slide, please. The subject property is a non-contributing resource in the Warehouse Historic District. The building was completed in 2001 as a multifamily residential building. Next slide, please. The applicant is proposing to remove 2 metal overhead garage doors on the primary, which is the south or southwest elevation of the building, and replace them with a garage door system of a woven rubberized material. The current doors are original to the 2001 design, and they've functioned as such for 20 years. They're highly visible from the First Street North public right-of-way. The applicant states that the high-speed springless function of the proposed rubber doors will be more resilient to damage and wear than the existing system. The current traditional track configuration of a near 2-story rise to lift the doors has posed operability problems at the property according to the submitted application materials. Next slide, please. The applicant cited concerns for safety regarding the current system. but has not presented information that clearly details that the proposed replacement would increase perceived safety measures at the property. Also, other potential safety measures or operability measures that could retain the original door system had not been explored or submitted by the applicant. Next slide, please. On January 19th, 2021, the Minneapolis HPC heard the certificate of appropriateness application for the subject property. Agreeing with staff recommendations, the HPC voted unanimously to deny the application. They noted that the alteration was not consistent with the Warehouse Historic District design guidelines, which state that new doors shall be made of metal, wood, or glass, and that there had not been enough information submitted in the application that could allow them to create supportable findings to potentially approve the application. With that being said, the appellant has submitted additional materials with the appeal application that do attempt to address some of the HPC's comments, but I will be available as staff to address any questions that you have relating to the HPC's decision. And the appellant is also here and would like to speak, if I understand. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sklacki. And can you tell me the additional information provided by the applicant, did that satisfy you as the planner? And do you think that would have addressed the questions by the Heritage Preservation Commission?
I believe it would have addressed some of the questions that they had. As far as the staff recommendations, it would have remained the same because the alteration did not meet the guidelines in that respect. So.
Okay, thank you so much, sir. Are there any other questions for staff on item number 4? If not, I'm going to proceed to open the public hearing. With this type of public hearing, we give the appellant an opportunity to make their case first. I'll invite Mr. Ben Sandvig or his representative to join the call. Please press *6 to unmute.
Hello, council members. This is Ben Sandig with Encompass. Good afternoon. It's a pleasure to speak with you.
Good afternoon, sir.
Okay, thanks. Glad that you can hear me. Just in following up on Rob's presentation, again, thanks, Rob, for the information. We've submitted an appeal to the decision to deny this application for certificate of appropriateness at 408 North First Street, known as Lindsay Lofts. We've supplied additional information in response to the committee's review and questions and ultimately denial. During the committee meeting, it was discussed that the rubber doors were proposed by the owners as an increased safety solution due to the existing doors. The existing doors, as Rob indicated a little bit, are normal garage doors. What they're looking for is a high-speed garage door. The high-speed garage doors reduce significantly the time that the doors are open while they're being operated, so it can reduce what's called, people call it piggybacking, or people are able to access the building after someone opens the door. The high-speed doors close quicker to prevent those kinds of access. The primary concern here of the owners to get these doors is for safety. They want to improve the safety of the garage doors because they do not feel safe with the current doors involved. So the current door models are not being considered for repair or replacement in kind because the current models do not meet their requirements. The new proposed doors, as Rob indicated, are a rubber door, high-speed door. This product is being proposed essentially as the only solution that's possible at this building due to the physical limitations of the space. During the HPC committee meeting, this product was discussed, and the committee suggested that the product would be acceptable, but due to the HPC staff findings that rubber was not an acceptable material, they requested a definite reason to use the rubber doors in lieu of some other door. There are other high-speed metal door products that exist and are available, and the committee at that time suggested that those products should be explored or could be used, and would only approve a rubber door system if no other option were available, because they would need that requirement to go against the rubber door material issue. So this appeal does include that information that shows that the rubber door is the only product that works in this location due to the physical dimensions and restrictions of this building. The owners had looked into it. The garage door supplier has provided information, which is included in this appeal application, that shows that the dimensions for the garage and essentially the metal doors that are available do not fit in this location, and the rubber doors, which are more compact, do in fact fit in this location and are the only solution. During the committee meeting, the committee did comment that the tan rubber doors would not adversely affect the appearance of the building and would not significantly change the appearance of the building. The issue was the rubber material. And again, the rubber material product that's being proposed is the only product that will work in this physical space. That's essentially the information that we are providing in this appeal. As I said, I've provided some photos of the existing, the new door sample showing the color match and also the dimensions and specs from some of the door products of the metal doors that do not work. I've also included some essentially testimony from some of the current owners in the or residents of the building, expressing their concerns for safety at the building. It was not argued that safety is a very important concern during the HPC meeting. The committee seemed to agree very much that security and safety is very important in this area, and that the rubber doors would improve the security and provide a more secure product at that door entrance. Again, the primary concern and reason to install these doors is for safety, and the building residents, they would just like to have a more secure door that fits at this location. That essentially summarizes my appeal. I attached my appeal documents with the when I signed up for the meeting, so those are available. If there are any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Thank you for your testimony. We'll see if there are any questions from members of the committee. Are there any questions? Seeing no questions, I will see if there's anyone else who is on the call who would like to speak to this issue. Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing and I will go back to staff and ask Rob if he would come back, please. Oh, I'm sorry, Councilmember Gordon, go ahead.
And you can certainly ask questions if you want beforehand, but I was wondering, and maybe staff can tell us this, if the current metal doors are broken, and also I'm assuming, I'm trying to remember when we created this district, and I think it was before this building was built. So I'm assuming it went through an approval process and had these doors approved the first time, saying that they were consistent with the historic district. And maybe staff could confirm that or something.
That's correct, Councilmember. The original metal doors were approved by the HPC in 2001.
And do you know if they're still functioning or are they actually broken and defective?
From the applicant submitted materials, it seems that they're still functioning, but according to discussions I've had with the applicant and property representatives, it seems like that sometimes there are operability issues with the current system.
Okay, thank you.
Rob, could I also ask you, have you confirmed that this is the only product, this rubber door? I mean, what happens with all of the other contributing and non-contributing buildings in the city's probably most notable historic district? Are we now going to see everybody coming through and saying we don't have to follow the materials, it's a safety issue, or there is no material that's consistent with the entire design guidelines within the historic district?
Yeah, thanks, Chair Goodman. That's a comment that the HPC actually made, that there are other systems that could be used that are metal, and they did not see that another example was submitted for the project as an alternative to what the applicant is proposing with the rubber system.
So, I mean, what the applicant's saying is there is no other product available. It's this product or nothing. And I find that hard to believe, and I'm worried about precedent that we would see everybody saying that. And again, this is one of the most renowned districts in the city. I would beg to guess that others would then replace their doors with a different product, that if there isn't one. So the applicant sent you something that said there were no other products available. Is that true based on your expertise?
We were not able to confirm that based on what they were submitted, or what had been submitted by them, I should say. But we are, as the HPC commented, that they believed that other products were available that were metal that could fit this system.
Okay, let's see if there are other questions, comments, or a motion from anyone on the committee. Anyone?
This is
Anyone?
the applicant. Can I speak?
Nope, we're not going to have a Q&A back and forth, sir, but thank you for asking.
Okay, just wanted to check.
I'll just see if anyone else on the committee has a comment, question, or motion. Seeing none, I will move to deny the appeal. I have not been convinced there's no other such product that could be used that would fit the design guidelines. There are many, many buildings in the historic district. I would guess most of them have doors, and they both probably have fairly significant doors given these old warehouses, and I would guess that another product is available. I don't discount the security issue in any way, shape, or form, but believe that whatever replacement needs to be made with the design guidelines in place. We'll see if anyone agrees with me, since no one wanted to say anything. Is there anyone else who'd like to speak to this issue? Seeing none, we'll ask the clerk to call the roll.
Councilmember Reich,
Aye.
Gordon,
Aye.
Osman,
Aye.
Schrader,
Aye.
Chair Goodman.
Aye.
There are 5 ayes.
That appeal is denied. With that, we will move to our discussion item. This is a discussion item with no action to be taken. This will simply be a receive and file, but we are very interested and excited to have this item in front of us. This would be looking at the coordinated plan for the Upper Harbor Terminal without preempting or prescribing any future consideration of any land use, zoning, preservation, or other action. This is simply an update by staff as well as members of the Upper Harbor Terminal Collaborative Planning Committee. And I also want to note that Councilmember Cunningham has taken time out of his schedule to be here today, and I greatly appreciate it. I have allocated about 30 minutes for this presentation, and so I'd like to turn it over to staff to utilize the time however they would choose.
Madam Chair, thank you so much, members of the committee, other council members in attendance, and community members. My name is Eric Hansen. I'm the Director of Economic Policy and Development for the city, and have the good fortune of speaking to you about an update on the Upper Harbor Terminal and the long planning process. Next slide, please. So we're going to have 3 presenters today, myself, and then we're going to turn it over to Markella Smith, who is one of the co-chairs of our Collaborative Planning Committee, it's a community-run committee that's been working with us over the last 2 years to go from the concept plan to this point in time in the planning process. And we also have our partner, Brandon Champo, who is the lead development partner from United Properties. And the way this will go up, we'll do project background. I'll give that up to you. Then we'll have the draft coordinated plan process given by Markella, and then Brandon will get into the nuts and bolts, and then we'll talk about implementations and next steps around this long process. And we have some staff from Public Works as well as our project coordinator Hilly Holmes on the line as well for questions from the committee as we go along and at the end. But before we get to the meat of this presentation, I want to thank the Collaborative Planning Committee, which has done amazing work over the last 2 years, working with the city and gone above and beyond what I think they signed up for. And that includes Markella Smith, and then our other co-chair, Miss Vanessa Williams, and then Jason Eisen, Bill English, Tanessa Green, Britt Howell, Mary Jammin McGuire, Shannon Lemon, Melissa Newman, Alexis Penne, Grace Rude, Courtney Schrader, and Makeda Zulu Gillespie, who worked tirelessly for the last few years, meeting with us in long sessions multiple times a month and putting in dozens of hours outside of the meetings. Also want to thank our community partners who have run independent learning tables, led by Devon Nolan, James Trice, and Dr. Sam Grant, and our partnerships with the Public Policy Project, as well as Pillsbury United Communities. Okay, next slide, please. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. The upper, can I have the next slide, please? There we go. Oh, we'll stop right there. We'll go right there. So the Upper Harbor Terminal is a 48-acre site that the city has owned for a number of decades. It's about 3 miles north of downtown, right on the river at about the Dowling Avenue exit right off of I-94. Was a barging terminal for a number of decades, and that ceased when the locks at St. Anthony were closed in 2014, and we've been currently using it for storage. We're now just at outdoor storage as we close the indoor warehouse at the end of last year. And it is the largest single ownership development opportunity along the Mississippi River in the country. Next slide, please. As far as context is concerned, this project is actually something that's been looked at by the city for more than 3 decades, but in this last iteration of planning, we started back in updates to plans back about 9 years ago, 8-9 years ago. And you see the number of plans that impact the Upper Harbor terminal, as this is a very important project for the city and the region. Next slide, please. This most recent effort started in 2017 when we selected the development team. The development teams were working collaboratively with the city and the park board to deliver a concept and then a coordinated plan, which we will discuss its draft today. The concept plan was approved by this city council and the mayor back in March of 2019, so we're about 2 years out. And you can see a number of touch points with the community or with our legislative partners, and a little bit of a break for the pandemic, but a lot of work that has been done through the last 4 years now. Next slide, please. During this time, we've had about 3 main components of planning and engagement with the community. From 2015 to 2017, before we selected the developer, we engaged in a lot of visioning with community, and then issued a request for qualification to find a development partner. United Properties will introduce themselves and their partners. When we selected them, we went into land uses and concept planning. That took about 2 years, and that culminated with the concept plan that is now kind of our guide for the coordinated plan. And then since then, we've been working on that coordinated plan, and that's had some additional components to it with the Collaborative Planning Committee, which the council created back in 2019. We also, working with our park board colleagues, they created their own advisory committee to work on the park elements, and then the learning tables, which were monthly convenings of 4 hours, usually about 4 hours apiece, which went into details about a specific component of the plan, whether that be housing or entrepreneurship or community benefits realized. And then that culminated with a draft of the plan, which was written and released December of last year. And we went through about a 45-day comment period and outreach, and that culminates now with this presentation to you. Next slide, please. And now I will pass it off to Markella, and then she'll pass it off to Brandon, and then we'll be back. So Markella.
Hello. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today. I am going to go over the process, a little bit about the CPC committee, and the definition of community, and also the summary of community benefits. Again, I just really appreciate the opportunity to speak. This has been quite a process. Quite a learning process for me in particular. So with that, I will just get into it. All right, so as you know, the concept plan for redevelopment was approved by City Council in March 2019. And then the Upper Harbor Terminal Collaborative Planning Committee was established by the City Council in March 2019. And it was established to work with the city and the developer on refining this concept plan into a coordinated plan for redevelopment. The CPC has met since June 2019. And I'll say this on the next slide as well, but we have met 34 times in the past year and a half, which is quite a bit. The Minneapolis Park and Recreation Board's Upper Harbor Community Advisory Committee was also established, and they have met since July 2019. The Learning Tables community engagement events convened by Public Policy Project and the Environmental Justice Coordinating Council, along with Pillsbury United Communities in partnership with the city, and so was supported through a grant from the McKnight Foundation. The Learning Tables met July 2019 through December 2020. I will also say that these three different entities, so to speak, have collaborated as well. CPC members attended the Learning Tables on a regular basis. While the Learning Tables were once a month, that meant CPC members were meeting 3 times a month between our own meetings twice a month and the Learning Table meetings. So CPC members met at the Learning Tables. A number of CPC members either attended the CAT committee meetings or were briefed about them. And then we had the CAC chair at one of our meetings, and then I presented at the CAC meeting as well. And so I say that to just let you know that there has definitely been communication across these different groups. And we've worked together to come up with the things that are presented in the draft coordinated plan. We can go to the next slide. All right, so the Upper Harbor Terminal Collaborative Planning Committee, known as the CPC, was again established in March 2019. It's made up of members appointed by the City Council and the Mayor to represent both North and Northeast communities and cultural groups. What I will also say is that this is made up of community members who have a vested long-term interest in the future of North Minneapolis. And I say that because I am a longtime Northside member. I grew up here, right on 42nd and Queen. I've been here all my life. And there are other members on the CPC who have that same story, who have been here for years, who have family here, who go to school here, who have kids here, who have businesses here. And so the members of the CPC have a huge vested interest in seeing the North Minneapolis community improve, but also not lose who it is, who and what it is, I would say. The culture that represents North Minneapolis that we're so proud of. We don't want to see that get lost in this development or any other development. So we brought that, our history, our longtime commitment, our longtime living here, we brought all that to the table when we met as a CPC. Since June 2019, the UHT CPC has met 34 times. Again, 34 times. I think our initial meeting schedule was not nearly that. I can't remember how many, maybe 12. But we collaborated with city staff and the development team. These meetings have allowed the UHT CPC to learn about the site and the concept plan, to refine the project values and the equitable and resilient inclusive development matrix to inform the redevelopment planning. We also reviewed and discussed in depth multiple topics, including affordable housing, community ownership options, economic inclusion, and other community benefits. And we reviewed, refined, and recommended community benefits in a real estate plan. Next slide, please. From these meetings, when we started, the definition of community didn't really sit well with us. We felt like there needed to be more detail, to be a lot more specific about what we're asking and what we're seeking. So for the purposes of this project, the UHT CPC adopted the following definition of community. The North Side community is defined as people who have a vested stake in the outcomes of the development of the Upper Harbor, specifically American descendants of slavery, ADOS, and Black, Indigenous, and people of color, BIPOC individuals, those living nearest to the project site, those in historically marginalized communities who typically experience displacement due to unfair banking practices, and we're talking about predatory lending and redlining, low and medium income individuals who have been forced out due to increased rents, those who experience displacement due to the 2011 tornado, and those who have also experienced cultural disruption resulting from public and private investments. So as you read this plan, throughout this whole plan, when you think about the word community, it's capitalized throughout the whole plan. It refers back to this definition that the CPC members adopted because we feel like it encompasses what we want to focus on, who we want to benefit from this project. We want everyone to benefit, but specifically those outlined in that definition. All right, next slide, please. All right, a community-focused vision. The redevelopment of the Upper Harbor Terminal provides a once-in-a-generation opportunity to create a large-scale community-building asset in North Minneapolis that's grounded in restorative approach towards racial justice that meets the needs, aspirations, and priorities of the nearby residents. Now, I've said from the very beginning of these meetings, I am a longtime, proud North Minneapolis resident. And I've also said that I want this development to be something that my kids, my 3 boys, can go to and feel welcome, feel like it represents them, and feel like they have a piece of ownership in. You know, I have a teenager now, and I want him to be able to go to that park and feel comfortable. And I feel like this plan and what we've outlined embodies that. I feel like we have talked through so many things, and we've gotten to a point of something that the North Side community, my sons and you know, my future, long-term future grandkids can feel proud of. And so with that, I just want to talk about the summary of community benefits real quick. It will connect North Minneapolis to the Mississippi River. The city will retain public ownership of the land, sustainable revenue streams back to the North Side. It will create those. It creates a 19-acre North Side riverfront park and trails. It builds a community performing arts center and a community health and wellness hub. It will provide rental and ownership housing affordable to current North Side residents, North Minneapolis, I call it North Side, provide opportunities for community ownership, and it will also bring 300 living wage jobs to the North Side. Also, economic inclusion through professional contracts and workforce inclusion. So this is just a summary of it. When you go, it goes into depth as part of the plan, but we've come a long way. And I will also say that the reason we have the plan that we do is because community went way above and beyond the initial ask. And we brought our hearts and our backgrounds and our experiences to the table to map out what you have before you. So that's all that I have. Next slide. All right, and now we have Brandon Champo with United Properties. He's the Senior Vice President, and he's gonna go over the draft coordinated development plan. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Markella. And just to repeat again, Brandon Champeau here with United Properties. We also have Dana Frank, who is with First Avenue and our partner, has been our partner on this project from day one. And just to kind of quickly reiterate our thanks to the city for the opportunity to present on our progress today, as well as for the work of the CPC and Markella's leadership and the learning table engagement teams. This this project has come a long way since early 2019, and it's survived a lot of different inflection points, and we're just incredibly thankful for everybody's time here, and thankful to city staff for working so diligently with us and being innovative and creative in implementing some of the community requests here that we are attempting to do here. So we can go to the next slide. But we're really excited to start this next chapter and really get moving here. Hopefully, once all of our technical studies are done, and since early 2019, when we received concept plan approval, we've really been operating with just 2/3 of our original team. If you recall, at one time there was a Thor logo on this slide, and we were very excited about that team and about how we were being represented, and who was representing us with Thor having their headquarters in North, and obviously just being the top or the #1 minority-owned company in the state. And unfortunately, as we all know, they went through a bankruptcy, and so we've since that time have been working to change that and really fill a slot that was incredibly important. And over the last 12 months, we have really ramped up discussions with Devin George to join our partnership here as a co-developer, particularly focused on the affordable housing, where he's got a lot of history and leadership on the north side, and just the experience and the credentials to really execute successfully on this part of the plan for us. And so we're very excited about the synergies that he brings to this team, and about his vision and ideas that he has, particularly around the housing and the health and wellness hub that we'll talk about here in a second. You can go to the next slide. So when the concept plan was approved in 2019, there were really a couple of pieces that just weren't fully settled, and really we hadn't spent the proper amount of time, even though we'd done 2 years of engagement up to that point, hadn't spent the proper amount of time really focused on, and that's primarily around defining who the community is and who's the primary beneficiary of this project, and then also the values and the priorities of that primary beneficiary. And this was a really important milestone for us in our work with the CPC over the last 2 years, was to get to these first two pieces here, the definition of the community as well as the project values. We had the framework of a real estate plan that we felt good in, but to really start to bring detail and vision to that plan, we really needed to work on the first two pieces here. And again, thankful to the CPC for all their work in helping us get to this point, because it really started to frame up how to make the real estate projects fit with and match what the community was really looking for. And we feel like we're getting to that point now. You can go to the next slide. What has really changed here is, again, as I mentioned, the concept plan, it was more of a development framework than anything. It wasn't a truly kind of thought out vision. It gave ranges of what the different components of the plan could be. There were a lot of different ideas that needed to be more vetted, and but it was an important step in just helping us kind of get to this next level of planning. And we do summarize some of the changes here. I'm not going to repeat these, but you can see it's a lot of just ranges, and the coordinated plan starts to bring more detail. Next slide, please. Which here I'm going to point out a couple of the kind of major changes. So starting first off with the CPAC, the Community Performing Arts Center. When we were getting concept plan approval, the CPAC was shown as part of the parkland, and that caused significant angst for many people. So we've moved the CPAC out of the parkland onto its own parcel, separated from the park. And so you see where it says A on both of these plans, that shows the change in location there. At the time of concept plan approval, we were actually really excited about the idea of a north side riverfront hotel. That did not, most of the community did not share that same excitement with us, and so we've decided to remove the riverfront hotel, actually remove hospitality entirely from the plan, and that has been replaced with a mixed income affordable housing project, as well as some for sale home ownership opportunities. And then we also back in 2019 didn't really know what to do on the south end of the site. There were still a lot of questions about the future of GAF and maybe whether they would be staying or leaving. And but you know, they're a private property owner. We've heard no indication that they intend to leave, and so that's allowed us to start to shift the focus to more detail about what could happen there, and our focus is primarily on creating job opportunities, attainable living wage job opportunities. And then also we've brought some more definition to the community hub concept, which we'll talk about in a second, and then the public ownership of land, which I'll get into more detail here as well in a minute. Next slide, please. So the development plan here is really broken up into three primary land use components. There's a residential component, which is shown in yellow and primarily focused on the north end of the site, which is really the furthest from the heavy industry that you start to see more of on the south end of the site, particularly GAF and some of the uses south of Lowry. We wanted to keep the residential as far away from that as possible. And so that's focused primarily on the north end. And the vision here is for a mixed income, attainable and affordable housing project, but you know, one that especially in the first phase delivers truly affordable housing for the north side. We have places for jobs that's shown in the purple on this plan, which is really on the south end of the site, and again kind of provides an opportunity for living wage attainable jobs, but also a bit of a buffer between the rest of the project and the more heavy industry on the south end of the site. We are excited about what these buildings could be and how they could be very future focused here on multiple respects, which I'll talk about in a second. And then places for community, which is shown as this kind of pink or red color. And really, these are, you know, they're kind of sprinkled throughout this plan, but they're the areas that will be most publicly accessible, whether it's ground floor commercial space, the park, the community performing arts center, the health and wellness hub, and you know, the places where there'll be most public interaction. We really want these to be heavily focused on community programming. Next slide, please. So just to talk in a little bit more detail on each of these, the housing, which we are showing here, it's about 520 total housing units. You can see a heavy emphasis in phase one on affordability, particularly delivering affordable housing on the riverfront. Really, we think the two prime affordable or the two prime residential parcels, which are bordering the park as well as the river, will in phase one will be entirely affordable, and we're excited about that. You know, giving Northside residents attainable rents on the riverfront, which are typically, you know, reserved for more luxury rental opportunities. We also are proposing a mix of affordable townhomes ownership opportunities that could be in a sort of limited equity structure or potentially some market rate housing. But the idea being that we are not intending to just create opportunities to rent here. We want to create opportunities for home ownership and for equity building and you know, really a primary source of generational wealth, which you know, many of us who do own a home are able to take advantage of. But the goal here is really a mixed income affordable housing community. Next slide, please. These places for jobs, as I mentioned, a heavy focus on living wage, attainable job creation, really with a, you know, what we would call a new age manufacturing and production. This is not manufacturing of yesterday. This is not smokestack industrial. This is, these are, you know, buildings that will truly be constructed in an attractive manner. They will honor the riverfront and honor the opportunity that they're being given, because it's very difficult in today's world to get any sort of manufacturing space really developed this close to the city. Most of this is being zoned out and most of it's being pushed further out in the suburbs, but these are really, these do provide very high quality, attainable and living wage job opportunities. And we're excited about really finding future focused industries that will occupy these buildings. And then the CPAC, we've included it as a jobs piece here. You know, it really blends between jobs and community focused spaces. But because there's a significant amount of operations jobs that will come from this, that Dana can speak more on if you guys have questions. Next slide, please. The community spaces, again, you know, focused on these places of high interaction with the public, particularly the ground floor commercial space, that we think there could be a lot of opportunities for Northside entrepreneurs to occupy these spaces. There could be some opportunities for a riverfront restaurant, the health and wellness hub that we have to really start to dive into and bring some detail to, but Devin George and his team will be leading the visioning of that and helping us bring partners to the table, but creating a place that the Northside can congregate for after school programming, for preventative health services and other health services. We think this could be an event center for the community, so we're excited about what that can bring. And then obviously the park and the CPAC in and of itself will bring a lot of visitors to this site that we intend to try to leverage as much as possible and take advantage of with these other spaces. Next slide, please. Markella did mention briefly some of the community benefits or summarize some of the community benefits, but we really want to just speak on two of these that we're really excited about. We think these are incredibly innovative ideas here and ones that we think will really put the city of Minneapolis on the map as far as ways other communities will look to replicate what we're proposing here. But you know, we had heard loud and clear through the engagement process that the community did not support the idea of public land being transferred to private development. And so what we're proposing here is a structure where the city will maintain long-term ownership of the land, except for the park and the CPAC, which come with their own bonding restrictions, but that all the other private development land will continue to be owned publicly. And furthermore, the recommendation of the CPC and the development team is to really take this a step further and utilize the revenue that's generated from these private developments to create long-term sustainable financial returns back to the community. And really what we're proposing and hoping that the city will recommend is that the private development ground lease payments that would be made from the private developers to the city over a 99-year period would be redirected back into what we're calling kind of a social enterprise fund or a community fund that could then be focused on community initiatives. And as it relates to the private development ground lease payments, our hope is that, you know, anti-displacement efforts such as property tax relief or foreclosure relief for nearby property owners could be, you know, that could be a source of revenue to help that. There's a lot of concern about what large scale development does to property values, particularly in low income areas. And, you know, quite frankly, most of the time, there aren't a lot of great solutions other than just seeing residents get displaced. And we think that these funds could be used in an innovative way to help with that. Furthermore, First Avenue has agreed to charge $3 on all their paid tickets, an extra $3 on all their paid ticket fee, which they're calling a paid ticket fee, that could also be utilized or redistributed back into a community focused fund. And here, those sources of revenue could be used for subsidizing space in the project, you know, for Northside entrepreneurs. It could be used to enhance the community programming in the venue, music venue, or elsewhere on the site. It could be used for local arts programming. There's a lot of different ways that those funds could be put to use. But the bottom line being that the social enterprise fund or this community fund would have input from a community organization to direct those funds back into Northside priorities. And then lastly here, next slide. Yep, perfect. We've gone a step further here, and really, as I mentioned, the community spaces, the community real estate opportunities, you know, we think would best be suited if they are, you know, really owned and operated by a community entity. And so our goal is we've identified a number of these opportunities that we are hoping to find a community partner to work with us, either as, you know, an advisor, as a joint venture partner, as an outright owner of these spaces. And we will be seeking this community partner through an RFQ process that we intend to start in March, and really with the primary goal of identifying a partner to fill the role of landowner with First Avenue on the CPAC, community fund or social fund, a social enterprise fund manager, or recommender of where those funds go, and then also as either advisor or joint venture partner or outright owner of these community focused spaces, the ground floor commercial, the health and wellness hub, the parking and mobility hub, the places where the public will interact. We think having a community partner at the table with us will make sure that those places stay focused on the right community programming, not only from day one, but also 10 years from now. And so it's our goal to identify that partner to work with us. And then next slide. So this just gives a couple of examples of some of the kind of future scenes here. There's obviously a lot of work that needs to happen on the design, but we're excited about the status of the plan, the progress that's been made, and the outcomes that we think this will generate for the Northside community. Thank you.
Thank you, Brandon. We've got a few more slides and then ask for some questions. If you can go to the next slide, talk about. We wanted to give you an update from the last time we talked to you about the infrastructure planning. You'll see on the map that will hopefully come up in a second. We've advanced the concept planning around the infrastructure that will be needed at this site. You see it depicted here. We have Nathan Koster from our Public Works team has worked very closely with us, and we're very appreciative of Public Works and the Finance Department and other departments, NCR, et cetera, around the enterprise, because this is truly a city effort to do such an enormous project. But I just want to point out two things. One, you see the extension of improvements up Dowling Avenue to make a better connection into the neighborhood up to Lindale, and also at the south of the site, 33rd Avenue, which was not part of the first level of infrastructure that you saw in the concept plan, is now being advanced so that we can access those jobs parcels at the south. Next slide, please. That means we've also been doing some refinement of how much it's cost. Now we're doing more infrastructure in phase one than we thought we could do in the concept plan, and we're finding a more refined costs where we're being successful in grants for this, and it looks like we had about a $12.5 to $13 million gap when we talked about the concept plan. That has come down a little bit. We need about $3 million here for the infrastructure. We do have some costs from power line relocation, some site prep, and site prep's a new number that we didn't talk about much in the concept plan. So all told, that's still lower than the 12 to $13 million we thought about in the concept plan. Next slide, please. However, we're expecting that the city is going to have to make some community investments. The CPC actually made a motion and asked for $1 million for support into the community entity. The city's prohibited from making direct contributions to entities, but we have a history from our redevelopment authority from investing in commercial and retail developments, and we expect that as we continue to refine this plan, you're going to have recommendations that come back from staff around direct investments to make sure that the community entity and the commercial components of this site are successful. We also are looking at best practices around stormwater, and then potentially looking at some phase two infrastructure. But all told, it could be around $15 to $20 million of city investment into all the components, with affordable housing aside. Affordable housing would be in line with the traditional programs that you, as this committee, are well aware of, and they'd be competitive through those processes. Next slide. And the final slide, what gives you kind of the project implementation today. Just an update on the work we've been doing over the last 2 years. As of today, we've announced the scoping of the AUAR, the Alternative Urban Area-Wide Review, which is the environmental review, and that process will go on through the summer. We will be looking at how a number of scenarios, including the one we see in the draft coordinated plan, will impact the environment and what mitigation strategies we might have. We will be working with the developer as they kind of go through their process around the community entity. And then back in the end of the year, third quarter and fourth quarter is when we're going to see a lot more specific actions that we're going to ask the city council to take. And that will include layouts for public work or for the infrastructure, the approval of the AUAR, as well as the first term sheets that we will see. And we're hopeful to see, work start in 2022, finally, on moving some earth. And we have kind of a deadline with the state around the $15 million in bond funding that comes next year. So we're on a tight timeline, but there's a lot of work that's going to continue over the summer. And we'll probably be back to the city council with an update on the coordinate plan after we understand what comes out of the AUAR and what changes, if any, we need to make. And hopefully we'll have some more information about the community entity, the community funds that could come off of this development, the actual costs of investment, and some exciting term sheets. So with that, I will let stand for questions. We do have staff on the line as well as the development team and Markella, and I turn it over to you, Councilmember Goodman.
Thank you, Mr. Hansen, so much for that incredible update. I had not had a private update, and so it's really good to see all of the work of the entire team. I do want to just take a moment to thank the members of the Collaborative Planning Committee. These are people who are volunteers in the general public, live, work, and play on the north and near north side. It's a massive commitment of major civic leadership to participate in this way. And I just want you to know, if any of you are listening, that the city and its elected leadership are very grateful for the work that you have done and how you've gotten just a tiny idea this far. And so I want to thank you as well as everyone on the project team. Before we open it up for questions, and I would ask members of the committee to get ready with questions if you have any. I'm really happy that Councilmember Cunningham has taken time out of his schedule, although he does not serve on this committee, to join us, which is not super common for us to go to other things. And so I want to thank him and invite him to say a few words, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for allowing me the space to be here at your committee, despite, as you mentioned, not being a member of the committee. So thank you so much for this space. I just wanted to add a few words that this project, the Upper Harbor Terminal project, was a project that I inherited when I was elected in 2017. When I came into office, this was a very common topic, frequent issue that folks brought up for us to talk about when I was coming into office. I saw where we were and there was a change in leadership, and I said that it was very important for us to orient this project to racial equity and justice, and really being able to do that through community wealth building and ownership. Felt very fortunate because city staff and the private development team were like, heck yeah, let's do this. And so, we got together and began the process of really reorienting with that explicit goal in mind of how are we going to leverage this development as opportunity to benefit legacy North Side residents. For as for my role as the council member, all 48 acres of Upper Harbor Terminal fall within the 4th Ward. It was a lot. I worked very hard to be able to carry the concept plan through the council process and really incorporate community feedback. I'm very proud of that plan that we brought forward because it really created the skeleton for the work to then be to put the meat on those bones. I heard quite frequently from community members during the concept plan approval phase. A lot of folks were saying there wasn't enough community engagement. But when I looked at the list of community engagement, I was like, there's like 180 different opportunities. So what does that actually mean? And what it was, how I translated that as a council member, was that it wasn't the right kind of engagement. Folks wanted to be able to be more deeply involved in actually a collaborative, empowered level of engagement. So that was why I brought forward the resolution that created the Collaborative Planning Committee. I'm very grateful for everyone who said yes to being a part of this work. I was able to very confidently pass the baton along to community members and city staff and the private development team, because I was able to, I trusted that our values aligned and that we all wanted to see the same outcome, which was a benefit to North Minneapolis in particular. Seeing this coordinated plan is a dream come true for me as a North Side elected representative, and I am so proud of the hard work that the CPC members have put in. I will just say as a quick aside that what we saw here today, the work that they put in is remarkable, a remarkable level of work, and I stand by that we should pay folks a stipend for their time to do this kind of in-depth work, particularly when we're asking Black folks to help us solve racial equity issues. Without this level of commitment that they put in, this plan would have never been as strong as it is and as beneficial for the North Side as it is. But staying on topic with the coordinated plan, I am eager for the steps ahead and ultimately bringing this project to fruition following all of the necessary steps of due diligence that Eric brought to mind. So I just want to say thank you, everybody, for all of your hard work, and thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you for being here, Councilmember Cunningham. I'll now call on Councilmember Reich, followed by Councilmember Gordon, followed by Councilmember Reich.
Thank you very much, Chair Goodman. And I also want to appreciate the good report that we got from people involved, staff and community members, and really thank the community members for their involvement. Also really want to thank Councilmember Cunningham for taking this on and helping to be a lead on it. I really appreciate some of the changes that I saw, actually, opening up some more park, it looks like, and some of those things, and some focus. And I'm excited to hear about a new development partner coming on board. I also wanted to ask about, and I know there may be no decision, so at least have an opportunity to speak about sustainability efforts here, and also what we're going to do to help make this address issues about climate change. This is just an enormous development opportunity, and I would really encourage folks to look at options for district energy, geothermal, some way that we might be able to heat these buildings without relying on fossil fuels in particular. So if there's any progress made in that area right now, it will be interesting to hear. I will also note that I sit on the city's clean energy partnership with the utility companies, and we have a sustainability office, so I'm sure there are some more resources that we can bring to bear on this as we need to, and I think it would be wonderful if we were able to do a development project this large and not have to pipe it for natural gas.
Councilmember Reich. Thank you, Councilmember Gordon. I'll call on Councilmember Reich. If anyone would like to speak, you need to put your name in the chat. Thanks.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and greatly appreciate the presentation by both the staff and the development team representative. You can just see the enormity of work that's gone into it to date, and it's quite impressive. Also, of course, as Councilmember Cunningham has shared, the extensive amount of participation and the variety of participation, also quite impressive, and it was good to get that update, though I've been following it rather closely, but it's sometimes good to hear it in summation, juxtaposed with the other elements of the project, both the participation and the evolution of the proposal. I think Councilmember Gordon did touch on the opportunities that lie ahead. I would say there's key components of our current status, as exemplified in the updates, were pieces of the infrastructure as contemplated, pieces of some of the values that are articulated, could converge into some great opportunities for both environmental outcomes, but even sustainability in terms of the maintenance and livability outcomes long-term for the site, if they're done in a very integrated fashion. And I think there are strong fundamental components that, if dovetailed in a particular way, could reap those benefits. I give kudos to the work of Public Works. That's the stuff I watch most closely. And I think from that work, the integrated utility concepts that I think Gordon referenced are things that are quite positive, how the river is honored over the long term. And here we have the opportunity to do a big chunk of development that actually would, in and of itself, from its very day one, meet our sustainability goals versus adding to the challenges of those goals that have been elusive to date. So I say all that with both promise and looking forward to doing the work ahead.
Thank you, Councilmember Reich. We'll see if there's anyone else on the committee or staff that have anything they'd like to add to the conversation. If not, I'm going to direct the clerk to receive and file this update and thank everyone who's participated on the call, including all of the staff and private sector collaborative planning committee and everyone else who has been working so hard on this. I thank you very much, Mr. Hansen, for your work. And for bringing this update to us. It's very important that as many people as possible hear about all the work that's been happening. So thank you for your time.
Yeah, there's a team effort. Thank you so much for the time to present to this committee today. I appreciate the half an hour plus. I'll say that.
Which you know is a lot for me.
That is a lot. Thank you so much.
We'll then move on to the last item, which is item number 15. This is also something that we will take action on. So I would ask Mr. Friends or Councilmember Cunningham or Councilmember Gordon to speak first, please.
Good afternoon, Chair Goodman and committee members. Before you today is a zoning code text amendment to modify the owner occupancy requirements for accessory dwelling units. This proposed amendment is being brought forward by Councilmember Gordon and would remove the owner occupancy requirement for attached and detached ADUs. Does IT have the presentation, the slides? I'll just go ahead without them. So as you're aware, Minneapolis established its current system of regulating ADUs in 2014. We have three categories of ADUs: internal ADUs, which are located within the principal structure and most often take the form of a finished basement or attic space; attached ADUs, which are most often a rear addition to an existing structure; and detached ADUs, which are located in a separate structure, most commonly replacing a detached garage. Oh, great, thanks. If you could go 2 slides ahead from here. Currently, ADUs are permitted accessory to owner-occupied conforming single-family homes and duplexes citywide. The ordinance requires that a property owner reside in one of the units on the property, and this requirement is enforced through the recording of a covenant of owner occupancy on the property, and that runs with the property through a potential change in ownership. Next slide, please. With the adoption of Minneapolis 2040, there was an included action step under Policy 35, which calls explicitly for the elimination of the existing owner occupancy requirement for ADUs. This proposed amendment is intended to directly implement a portion of this policy from the comp plan. Next slide, please. As I mentioned before, the proposed amendment would eliminate the existing owner occupancy requirement for attached and detached ADUs, allowing them accessory to all conforming single-family homes and duplexes in the city, regardless of owner occupancy, and would retain the owner occupancy requirement for internal ADUs. This amendment will allow a greater number of properties across the city the opportunity to pursue the establishment of an ADU, while also preserving existing flexibility under the building code that is currently afforded to owner occupants looking to establish internal ADUs. The Planning Commission held a public hearing on the proposed amendment last month, and the Commission did vote to recommend that the Council adopt the ordinance text as presented. This concludes my presentation, and I'm happy to address any questions you might have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Friends. I'm not sure if there are any questions, but I will call on Councilmember Gordon as the lead author. Councilmember Gordon, go ahead.
Thank you very much. And I don't have any questions. I just wanted to move this forward. I just want to acknowledge it actually took a lot of work, and we had to divide it up a little bit like this because of building code standards and fire code standards. But it was exciting to see that we were able to implement this part of the comp plan and this strategy, and that it was unanimously supported at the Planning Commission. So I think thanks in large measure to staff meeting with one another repeatedly. I'm really delighted that we were able to come up with this compromise and this win-win so that we can open up. And I'm not expecting a whole bunch more ADUs to get created out of this. They're expensive, but this is another way we can have some more innovative housing types in our city that can hopefully help us address our housing needs into the future.
Thank you, Councilmember Gordon. Is there anyone else who would like to speak to this? I'll ask Councilmember Gordon if did you move approval, Councilmember? I'm sorry.
I did.
Okay, thank you. I will note, and I was one of the people who had questions, every lot in the city can have as many as 3 units, and there's no owner occupancy requirement. So this would be very consistent with what we've already decided in 2040. And so I'm supporting it because I don't think it makes sense to have ADUs be owner occupied, but a general triplex in one building or 2 wouldn't have to be. I think we need to be consistent, and we've seen since they've been implemented that having an owner occupant or not is not really a critical factor. And I'm supporting Councilmember Gordon's motion in this because I think it makes sense. Are there any other further comments or questions? If not, I'll ask the clerk to call the roll on item number 15.
Councilmember Reich,
Aye.
Gordon,
Aye.
Osman,
Aye.
Schrader,
Aye.
Chair Goodman.
Aye.
There are 5 ayes.
That item is approved. And I do want to note that I noticed a while back, Councilmember Ellison has been on the call, but was gracious and did not interrupt. As a result of that, I would guess that Councilmember Ellison would like to be recorded as voting aye on all items he was in attendance for. So I'll call on him to see what he'd like to say about that.
Yes, Madam Chair, thank you so much. I would like to be recorded as aye on all items I was present for. So thank you.
Thank you. And he was just quiet and polite and didn't note that he was there. But I saw him sign on when I was looking at the participants. So I'd prefer if you could record him as present for all items that required to vote today. With that, seeing no further business before us and without objection, I'll declare this meeting adjourned. Thank you all for your time.